afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari, starting off at Sydney's Dam with this lovely female warthog and her two piglets. It's good to see them happy and healthy once again. I've been watching this warthog family grow up over the last few months in this area and watch as they've become more and more accustomed to the presence of the vehicles. Welcome. My name is Jamie and it is absolutely wonderful to be back once again in Djuma and Arathusa and Cheetah Plains game reserves in the Sabi Sands of the Greater Kruger National Park area. In labour at some point in the last few days. VM, of course, has just been filling me in on all of the comings and goings while I've been away. As some of you may know, I did sneakily watch one show while I was away, and that was with Karula's cubs coming out for, I think it must have been the third or the fourth time that we've seen them properly. Amazing to see how much they've grown. Just stop to enjoy this red-billed hornbill's display if he continues for us, just because it's so pretty in the sun like that. Almost, come on. There we go. And we do apologize for the gremlin that appears to have attacked our stream. We seem to be up and running again. My sincerest apologies because I think you must have missed the display of our red-billed hornbill, although he's doing quite an interesting job there of rearranging his beak. I was just about to say doing the courting call of the hornbills, or having a good preen now. What I was going to say before the attack of the gremlins was that there's nothing like 2 weeks in a city to open your eyes up to the beauty and the majesty that is the wilds of Africa. It was wonderful to be back in my hometown of Johannesburg. That being said, 2 weeks is about the maximum period of time that I can spend there comfortably. I usually find myself quite thoroughly overwhelmed by the sounds of traffic. In fact, just constant sound. It doesn't quite have that blanket layer of silence that the bush does. As I was saying before I stopped for that hornbill, VM's just been filling me in on all of the comings and goings of the various animals. So, for those of you who are regular viewers and have been watching the last few shows, VM showed me to the spot where there was a leopard kill, something dragged up into a tree. And apparently the Birmingham boys spent a morning or an afternoon lying up not too far away from it. It was the Nkuhumas. Well, VM keeping me in line once again. The Nkuhumas, presumably just the four then. Yeah. So the four Nkuhumas spent some time lying up in the shade, close to the leopard kill. We went back to have a look. There's absolutely nothing there apart from tracks of hyenas wandering up and down the road. Now, leopards pull their kills up into a tree in order to keep it away from nosy predators, and even a lion, having seen the position of where that kill was, even a lion would have had a fairly difficult time of climbing up there and getting it down. And I suspect what happened there was that whilst the leopard was away, the other scavengers of the feathery variety arrived, probably something like a tawny eagle or a batalier, and descended and probably dislodged it from its position in the tree. And then the hyenas, judging from their tracks, came and made short work of whatever was left of it. That's, of course, if the leopard in question didn't return to have a quick snack on it himself. I also hear tell that it was probably Gijima's kill, the mystery phantom who has started establishing a territory for himself around this area. Liam tells me he's even been seen scent marking. Interesting times lie ahead, and we'll have to wait and see how Tingana takes the presence of this particular intruder. Having returned back to the bush, and I really only just returned about 2 hours ago. I drove up from Johannesburg first thing this morning. Aaron in New Zealand, welcome to the Sunset Safari. You were wondering what the thing is that I miss the most while I'm away in the bush, or away from the bush, I mean. Oh, that's such a difficult question. And the reason it is so difficult is because it's difficult to single out one thing that is part of the overarching feeling that I get when I'm in the bush. I always describe it as being, when I'm out here, I feel as though I am the most at home. And it is like a homesickness when I'm away. I've been living in the bush for many years now, and I've had regularly gone back to visit my parents who live in Johannesburg still, and it's still always very difficult. I think if I had to pick one thing, it might be the personal space. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. With a city, there's always somebody very much close to you. And I feel that you miss your connection to nature when you're, that's very cliched, but it's genuine. You do miss the connection to nature when you are driving through a city. And of course, Johannesburg being Johannesburg, there's a hyper-awareness of what's going on around you, but in a very different way to the hyper-awareness that we have in the bush. Now, while I've been away, I hear that Samwise has been doing an absolutely sterling job. So let's head across to him so that he can say hello to you for the afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Live Safari. Jamie, it is fantastic to have you back. It's great to be out in the field with Jamie this afternoon. She's just come back from a nice long leave, so it's great to have her back. On your vehicle this afternoon, it's Sam Chevalier and Dave, who will be going out there. Oh, of course, Elvis the Alien. Don't forget Elvis the Alien. And we're going to be out looking for anything that we can find, whether it's large, small, big, anything. It's just going to be an exploration and adventure into this beautiful, great wilderness of the Sabi Sands Djuma Game Reserve. If there's anything that you would like to see in specific, please hashtag Safari Live. We'll do our best to find what you would like. We're on Wendy, so we can't go to Cheetah Plains, so I don't suggest looking for a cheetah this afternoon. So we're probably going to look to see if we can find any tracks of Tingana, Karula, anything that might have crossed into our property while we've been having lunch, which was an amazing lunch. We had a nice vegetable curry made by the amazing Amanda. She's a really, really sweet lady. She cooks all our food. We're about to come towards the treehouse dam. So we were here a bit earlier. There was absolutely nothing around treehouse dam earlier. Actually there was some beautiful birds around here. There was some nice trees. Of course, you don't always have to find the big animals to have a good time. So there's all sorts of stuff that'll be out here this afternoon. And the flies are definitely, Dave? Yep. Got lots of tracks here. Lots of little tracks. It looks like little genet tracks. Beautiful little genets, large spotted genet. And civet. So there are lots of civet tracks as well. That's what we've been seeing today. And we went up this morning. It was myself and Brian, and we went to go look for the female lioness that is quite pregnant, and also just the other lionesses that we saw last night, that we were very privileged to see last night. And let me just update everyone. We saw quite a few birds, which was exciting. Within the space of 3 minutes, we must have seen loads of birds. So I just want to quickly get my bird list out so that we can see what we've got now. So I'm having a look at all my other notes while I'm doing this. As you can see, there's been quite a few. So what did we see this morning? Okay, so we saw a bateleur this morning. We saw a Bennett's woodpecker, a 3-banded plover, a martial eagle, a bateleur, and a white-crested helmet shrike, which is very exciting. I've often seen the white-crested helmet shrike, and just as we're about to go live, we're like, okay, we're about to go live, and then it's gone. It's just the way it works sometimes. So when it finally went live, I was pretty excited. So hopefully we'll be able to see a few other birdies this afternoon. Who knows what we might see. How cool were those small little crested francolins last night? It was such a cool thing to watch. The tiniest of birds running around the bushveld, and then it just went underneath its mother's wings. Something you don't often see. You know, we might be tracking all sorts of big animals out here, but something we don't see are like little baby chicks of crested francolins, or like frogs, or like, how do we find those things? The other things that are not so big but small, which is just as hard to track as those big lions and those big leopards. So hopefully we can bring that to you, because that's something I enjoy doing. Got some tracks here. So we got some hyena tracks that are on the left here. The hyenas looks like they were very active last night. They were walking all over this place, possibly looking for something to eat this afternoon, or last night, sorry, early morning. Actually heard them all through the night. So I wake intermittently, so I would wake up at 1, go to the toilet, and I'll just hear hyenas cackling off in the distance. I just think, what are they doing at that hyena den? But we're just coming into Treehouse Dam now. Who knows what we might find? Maybe a buffalo wallowing, maybe some elephants playing, maybe some birds drinking, maybe some water lying static. Who knows? Oh, we've got a buffalo, everyone. We've got a beautiful looking buffalo. 2 of them. It's fantastic. Let's have a look at them. So we have 2 buffaloes. There they are, wallowing in the heat. I'm gonna get up onto the, let's go like this. Got a good enough zoom. There they are. So that's our 2 buffaloes out on the watering hole. We'll go get another angle of them now, but I just wanted to see front on how, there we go, it's a hot day. So we spoke about how cold it was this morning. I was freezing. I didn't wear long pants, I just wore shorts, and I was very cold. And now it's just a couple hours later and I'm boiling hot. You can see that this buffalo is not, you can tell that this buffalo over here is not very cold. It's nice. He's looking to get some water and wallow in this watering hole, which is Treehouse Dam. We've got quite a strong wind that is blowing this afternoon. It wasn't there this morning. It's not chilly at all. So I'm actually hanging underneath the car so that I don't have to feel the wind on the mic, so you can quite clearly hear my voice. But there's the sound of the oxpeckers. You can see a number of butterflies flying around them. Still got the African migrants, and there's such incredible looking, there is he, look at him flying around. Beautiful. And then you've got the oxpeckers sitting, two of them are sitting on the back, and we were so lucky to see yellow-billed oxpecker the other day. Very excited. Look how comfortable he looks. So he's an old boy that doesn't follow the breeding herds anymore, the large herds. He comes and chills in these watering holes because it's too much of an effort to follow the large herds anymore. You can see all those flies next to him there, so I'm experiencing the same amount of flies as he's experiencing out here, so it's quite a tough one to play with, all these flies around your face. He looks very comfortable though. Debbie from Vancouver would like to see some parasitic behavior today. Well, there we go, Wendy. We'll do our best, Debbie. Hopefully we can find maybe a tick. See if we can find a tick. Sometimes the buffaloes and the elephants will walk across a tree and rub all the mud against the tree, and in doing so rub off the ticks that are there. That's their way of getting their parasites off them. So if we go look at some of a whole bunch of birds fly off there. So if we go look at some of the trees that have mud on them, maybe we'll find one of those ticks. You just saw a blue waxball fly by. Have a look in the tree there, that's a new bird. Tim, I'm going to come back to your question now. About the tree house and guests staying there, but let's just have a look at the tree. I just saw a very, very small bird called a blue waxbill fly through here. Very, very difficult to see, but if we have the opportunity to quickly get a look at it, then we might be able to write it in our book. Just go slowly down, please, Dave. Is he still there? He's a small little blue waxbill. He was jumping around that foliage now. So he's just gone. That's just the way it works sometimes. It's okay. We'll find the blue waxball at a later stage. So Tim, you want to know if people stay in the treehouse sometimes? Well, no. The treehouse was made many years ago. I think a couple decades ago even, and it was made for hunting. So they put it up next to the watering hole, the treehouse, and they used to wait for, I think, some predators that would come and drink, and then they would... Oh, so it wasn't for hunting. Sorry, I got that completely wrong. I think it was just to view the animals. Oh, it was for a TV show. Kirsty's updating me. I got that completely wrong. It was for a TV show, so they used to sit up there and do some filming up in the treehouse. I think I overheard something and picked up stormpies, which means that I picked up the wrong information. So it was just a place where they used to view and do some game watching for TV shows. And the treehouse used to be on that tree in the background. So if you look at that buffalo, follow the tree right behind it, and in that tree is where the treehouse used to be. From this distance, you might be able to see one of the logs or sticks that were part of the treehouse, but I don't think we can. I'll do my best to get to the other side and we can have a look. But for now, let's go and see how Jamie's doing and see maybe what she might be up to. We'll see you in a bit.
Jamie is currently sneaking up on a herd of elephants. I say sneaking, like there's any chance they haven't heard me. And if they hadn't heard me then, putting my foot on the brake, we'll definitely have announced our presence to the rest of the herd. Oh, there we go. How lovely. I was really hoping that my first drive back there'd be some elephants. And I've been lucky in that here they are, hiding out in the shade. And the reason I've stopped this current distance away from them is there's actually another elephant much closer to me on my right, but it is so well hidden. If I hadn't seen its tail moving, I would barely have realized that it is there. straight through these trees right here. It was facing straight into the road. Oh, difficult to see. Amazing how the bush manages to hide an animal that large. We should be able to sneak forward a little bit, although reaching up. We've got a whole breeding herd. I'm hoping that they might be on their way to have a drink at Buffelshoek Dam. They don't look like they've had an afternoon bath yet. It is relatively warm this afternoon for winter. They might be on their way that way. It looks as though they might be going north. Nothing better than watching a herd of elephants swimming in a dam. Just turning on the vehicle, letting the engine run for a little bit before we sneak forward, just because of this elephant on our right. Oh, luckily we have the best road on the property. We're on the fire break road. There we go, as we go into stealth mode. You can see the elephant that I was talking about. There she is. I told you there was an elephant there, hidden away behind the trees. And she's actually got a youngster with her, which I didn't originally notice. I was so excited to see elephants once again. Aaron, you asked about what I miss the most. And if I had to pick an animal that I miss the most, the elephants would probably be the one that I would choose. Oh. There goes half a buffalo thorn in one go. And thank you to all of you who've been sending welcome back messages. I'm very happy to be back and taking you out on the largest safari vehicle in the world. Crunch. Those of you familiar with the buffalo thorn that she's currently eating will know all about the straight thorns and then the hooked thorns that are indicative of this particular plant. As you can see, that is of absolutely no problem to an elephant. It never fails to astound me just how tough the skin of their mouths really is. Quite a young cow from what I can see, relatively small in size, and with relatively smooth temples. And what I mean by that is actually the fact that with the younger elephants, or let's rephrase that, the older an elephant gets, just like with people, they lose that subcutaneous fat layer, and it makes the bones around their face a little bit more prominent as they get older. But she doesn't seem to have started that whole process yet. Beautiful eyes. She has got relatively long tusks though. Oh, there goes some more buffalo thorn by the looks of it. Berries and all. Oh, I'm enjoying this new camera immensely. Look at that. All of the hairs around her lower lip and her upper lip, helping her to feel her way around an area that she cannot see, and working in conjunction with that phenomenal trunk. Most unique of adaptions. More of that buffalo thorn. You can just see her using her tongue to direct it. And thank you very much, Gracie. I was hoping that you were watching this particular sighting. Gracie's sent through a welcome back and said that she misses sitting with me and the elephants. I think Gracie enjoys elephants possibly even more than I do. So Gracie, I'm very happy to be back, and I'm very happy that we've had this afternoon to spend with them. Now there's a smell that I miss. Apart from the dusty scent that pervades the winter air, grassy smell of elephants. Let me see if we can shuffle forward a little bit, just to get a slightly clearer view of this lovely lady. They're perfectly relaxed. There we go. Hello, girls. Hello, gorgeous. Oh. Beautiful view of her in the dappled sunlight of the afternoon. And I've missed this. I hadn't realized I'd missed it until I returned to find that winter has arrived in the Lowveld. There's a certain quality to the light, and that, of course, combined with the added positive that it is not nearly as bakingly hot in the afternoons when we head out on our sunset safari. Now, just while we have this opportunity, and we've got this lovely close-up of those gorgeous eyelashes. Look at that. An elephant might not look like a hairy animal, but of course, just like any other mammal, they do have hair all over their bodies. Those long eyelashes are a protective force when feeding on those thorny trees like the buffalo thorn. And then, of course, her lovely beard. It's not often you find a lady being complimented on her beard, but her beautiful whiskers also helping her, all part of the tactile senses that are so important to an elephant. Here comes an older cow who's raced across the road in front of us, followed by a youngster, her female calf. Oh, she is so pregnant, and wideness around her hips. Definitely on her way to having the next baby, and this little girl's in for a bit of a shock. She's no longer going to have the undivided attention of mom. Although, of course, with elephants, and particularly with the females, the calves have the rest of their lives to look forward to, spent within the protection of the herd. Hello, girl. Quick stop to have a look at us. Oh, but that buffalo thorn is just too tempting. Trunk, tusks, and mouth all working in conjunction to essentially strip bare one side of this plant. She's absolutely loving it. I mentioned that the buffalo thorn was fruiting, so there are berries on it as well, just to add to her culinary delight and enjoyment. Better catch up with the rest of the herd, girl. She's going to come right across in front of us. I love this feeling. And she is the last of her herd to disappear into the bushes. And Durant, absolutely. Durant has said that it never ceases to amaze how elephants can disappear into the bush, despite being such, of course, a tremendously enormous animal. Off she goes, and as she disappears, let's find out which particular feathered friend Sam has to add to all of our bird lists.
We are sitting here with a fork-tailed drongo, and I know you've just been with elephants, and drongos have quite a symbiotic relationship with elephants in the sense that they move behind the ellies and they collect all the insects after they've been walking. So someone wanted to know earlier, I've just forgotten the name of the person, want to know about parasitic relationships. It's not a parasitic relationship, it's a commensalistic relationship where one animal is benefiting and the other is neither harmed or benefits. So that is the relationship that a drongo has with an elephant. And I know we wanted to find something parasitic, but it's also interesting to see the other side. There's mutualism, there's commensalism, which is the one with the drongo and the elephant, and a tick and an elephant would be a parasitic relationship. So we're going to still do our best to see if we can find a tick on a tree after an elephant's rubbed on it. Hopefully we find some elephants, and that'll both maybe help us find a drongo again and a tick that has been rubbed off on the tree. We saw drongos the other day that were harassing a gymnogene. It was incredible to see that. All the drongos were like dive bombing this gymnogene. Gymnogene is otherwise known as a harrier hawk. It's an incredibly beautiful bird. So we're busy driving the boundary line to see if we can find any tracks of leopards walking onto our property, because we drove most of the roads this morning and there are absolutely no tracks of leopard. So we thought, let's go drive the 2 boundary roads to see if anything's crossed in. And that's going to give us the best opportunity to track a leopard this afternoon. Leopard, wild dogs, anything that might be on our property this afternoon. James Richard says, I have to go down because my mic is making too much wind. James Richard says that you'd like to see a hoopoo. James, I would also love to see a hoopoo. I think we've seen quite a few hoopoos while I've been on drive over the last couple of days. The African hoopoo. And we'll see, as soon as I spot one, James, I'll give you a mention and say, there, it's an African hoopoo. It's also one of my favorite birds. I was thinking it's a sloth. All birds I really enjoy, but African hoopoo's just got such magnificent colors, that distinctive brown. It's just a really, really nice looking bird. He's just got a nice hairstyle. He's got a really, really cool hairstyle. See if there's any tracks moving in here. No tracks. No tracks of the elephant. So we're also thinking maybe we should go through to Arathusa. I mean, we've got Ellie with us, and we know, I don't know the roads very well, but it's worth going and exploring and maybe seeing what could be there. So I haven't been there for a while. Potentially we can go down to the airstrip. Who would like to see a jackal? I haven't seen a jackal since I've been here, so we're going to tick that off. And I was with Dave the other morning and we spotted cheetah. So Dave's got an incredible eye for looking for animals at a distance. I don't know if you guys want to drive with us when we saw those two male cheetahs from a distance. They were running over into Mala Mala. It was very cool to see that. So Arathusa is ahead of us. We're now leaving Djuma, saying goodbye for now. We'll be back later. Let's head into Arathusa. This is where we were with the wild dogs. So we were sitting here with painted wolves, and it was also a very cool sighting with those wild dogs because we got to sit with them for quite some time and I drew it, and I also took some notes around them. So that's the best way to learn from me, is actually to sit next to an animal and then read facts about it and learn about its life cycle and all that sort of stuff. It was really nice. The time when you're with wild dogs, they are not lying down. They are on the move, missioning in all sorts of directions. So Jamie's up at Buffelshoek, we are in Arathusa, we're on an adventure, we're going to see what we can find out here. Hopefully next time you see us, we'll have something small or big. Let's go see what James is doing.
Thrilled to hear that Sam is off on an adventure. Sounds like great fun. I'm doing pretty much the same thing. As I said, there is no particular plan for this afternoon. I thought I'd just pop in and see how Buffelshoek Dam is doing. As VM said, very much living up to its name as Buffelshoek, as in other words, Buffalo Corner, and is filled with lazy buffalo male bulls. Look at that one at the back, he's totally flat, lying completely on his side, not even in the mud, or not that I can see anyway, fast asleep, enjoying the afternoon, maybe just enjoying the lower temperatures of winter afternoons. Now, of course, having spent tremendous amount of time with Buffels, I'm trying to remember which particular language I'm speaking, having spent a tremendous amount of time with Duggar boys, the male buffaloes, we often get to see the oxpeckers sitting on them and picking off the parasites. And they particularly, in the case of the ticks that sit on buffalo, kudu and giraffe, those ones are particularly easy to see. And since we are here, it gives us an opportunity to answer Debbie's question about whether or not we would consider a tick to be a predator. And the answer is technically no. It's considered to be a parasite rather than a predator. And the distinction lies in the fact that ticks very rarely, they do occasionally, but very rarely actually kill their host. Whereas a predator actively goes out, hunts, and kills something in order to eat it. A parasite, whether it be a tick, a mite, a flea, or even, for example, mistletoe on the branches of knobthorns or marula trees, the aim of a parasite is never to kill the host, because that's actually not very beneficial to the parasite itself. It wants to have as much time as possible to feed off the host until its life cycle is complete, at which point it can drop off and reproduce. And there's different species of ticks, so they reproduce in different ways. Some have one cycle throughout their life, others have 2 or 3, in which they will drop off, breed or drop off and attach to a bigger host, whatever it happens to be whichever approach they happen to take. In the case of buffalo, a lot of them are 3 host ticks, something like a bont tick or a blue tick. But we wouldn't consider them to be predators. Although the idea of a predatory tick, in my head now I've got this sort of vision of a giant tick hunting people. It's quite terrifying. So no, Debbie, we wouldn't really consider it to be a predator per se. Of course, I said that they don't usually kill their hosts. They can kill their hosts. In a lot of cases, however, there's usually a different reason behind why that animal is weak to start with, and basically the ticks just exacerbate the death of that animal, or speed up the death of that animal and exacerbate the illness. So, for example, a particularly afflicted buffalo with TB, tuberculosis, might have a higher tick load than normal, and they will just weaken the buffalo even further until it eventually gives in to the disease. Of course, it's very unusual for buffalo or lions or any other animal out here to be badly affected by tuberculosis. Some are, but for the most part, and I read this recently in an article, somewhere in the region within the southern Kruger, about 80% of the lions in this area have tuberculosis. We know that the sticks, we strongly suspect that the sticks females have tuberculosis. The Birmingham boys probably do as well, and Nkumas might do. With statistics like that, within southern Kruger, 80% of lions have it. And what research is starting to suggest, there was a mass panic around the 80s and 90s in Kruger, particularly with buffalo and with lions, that these animals were actually going to be wiped out by the virulent spread of tuberculosis. And what research has shown is that for the most part, they carry it without any major adverse effects on them. And that, of course, that fear led to the mass breeding of disease-free buffalo, sort of specific targeting of disease-free buffalo, initially from areas within the Eastern Cape, but then bringing in young calves from Kruger that had not yet contracted the disease, and ultimately resulted in the creation of what's known as the red line. Red line is an area that runs through Hoedspruit, and basically anything to the east of that red line has always likely to have tuberculosis. Anything to the west of that absolutely cannot. Of course, the major fear here, it's not just about the worry or the concern for buffalo. It's also the concern for, particularly in an area or in a country such as South Africa, with such a dependence upon cattle farming. And tuberculosis, bovine TB, which is what the lions and the buffalo carry, could spread very easily across to cattle and then, of course, to humans that consume that meat product or the milk. So an interesting way in which a natural disease can interact with the environment around it, and how naturally occurring disease do actually have a part to play within this entire ecosystem. And speaking of the smaller things that have parts to play in the ecosystem, let's go across to Sam and a dung beetle.
Here we have a dung beetle. So I told you we might be able to find something small, and it is a truly beautiful looking dung beetle. Look at the iridescence that is shining off the back of this dung beetle, and he is truly moving this thing as quick as he can. Look how he hooks the back of his legs up onto the dung, and then he pushes the dung around. So he's going to have a bit of a problem here, because he's got quite because he's moving himself away from the middle of the road. He was right in the middle of the road, and now he's at least on the side. But I'm hoping that he manages to push it up this hill and go far into the vehicle so that he'll be safe. But there's different types of dung beetles. It's one that I haven't seen before. I've never seen a dung beetle that has such a magnificent glow on it. I mean, I'm not sure if you can see it from the camera lens there, but right next to me I can just see the shine that is coming off this dung beetle. And this dung beetle will be laying its eggs inside the middle of this ball. So they come to find the elephant's dung. They mold a ball out of the little bit of dung that they have there, and then they will lay their eggs in the middle of that ball. So I'm getting in your way, my friend. It's so, whoa, jeepers there. So even a little tiny hill like that can be quite large for him. So imagine using your back legs to push up a ball up a hill. It's not an easy feat to do, but this dung beetle is definitely going to do his best out there. So it's an incredible little sighting, and just while I was looking at that dung beetle, I found this magnificent looking butterfly that obviously has passed away. But look at that, just look at the pattern of this butterfly. I'm not sure what the name of it is. Let me put it in the sun. In the sun there, isn't that a beautiful pattern of a butterfly? So I'm not sure which butterfly that is. But let's go and see what else we can find. We found two beautiful things that are small. Hopefully that dung beetle will get it up the hill. At least he's on the side of the road where the tire tracks aren't meeting, so he's going to be fine. I was gonna move him in case he wasn't getting it off the road. But watching him here from a distance now, seems like he's kind of getting it. There he goes. Oh no, straight into the hole. Oh boy. And sometimes you just get the feeling that you want to help them, but it's the wrong thing. You just mustn't get involved. You just want to push that ball up the hill. Oh no. Well, I wish you all the best in your endeavor to push that big ball, well, quite a small ball of dung compared to some dung beetles that I've seen carry balls, push balls. But it's always cool to see a dung beetle. Cheerio for now, my friend. We are off to Arathusa. So you can quite clearly see we're going into Arathusa as we pass the sign in front of us here. Arathusa this way. Ooh, we we have another vehicle passing us. I'm just going to get into a position where I can let him through. Good afternoon, Paul. How's it going, mate? You well?
How's it, guys?
How's it going, everyone?
Where are you off to?
I'm not sure yet. I've just driven in. Is there anything?
I know Roy and them are going to be heading around Red Dam, that area there. I don't know if there's anything hanging around the Scorba.
Okay.
But a lot of what was happening was all happening on Elephant Plains this morning, so
Oh.
it was over.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I was just going to go down and see if I can find some jackal. Maybe we can find some jackal by the
Try the southern end of the strip.
southern end.
Yeah, southern end of the strip. Maybe go down central. You might get lucky.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy.
Enjoy the rest of your drive. Cheers, eh? So we've got a bit of traffic here. It's okay. It's nice to say hello to everyone on this afternoon. And we've just got a little tip on where we might be able to find some jackal. How's it, Paul? You good, bud? Good, bud. I'm so glad we watched that dung beetle get out the way. Because when you see all these vehicles driving, you know, sometimes people don't pick up on the small little things. So Paul thought that you would mainly find dung beetles out in the summer months. That's correct, Paul. You mainly do see them in that period of time, but you can see them going into the autumn period, as well as a little into winter. But it's generally when you'll see them. Of course, there will be exceptions to every rule. But wasn't that a beautiful looking dung beetle? How was that? Those colours on the back of it is such a cool looking dung beetle. So I've spotted quite a few of my first animals with Dave. So we saw those wild dogs. I probably had the best sighting of my life with Dave. We were driving through the Mawati drainage line with those wild dogs a couple weeks ago, like maybe 2 weeks ago, and there were wild dogs just running on either side of us, chasing an inyala. Wow. When you get yourself in a position like that, I just couldn't believe it was happening. It was amazing. It's so amazing. So who knows what we might see this afternoon. Okay, so we're going to head in the general direction. Ooh, let's go this way. In the general direction of the airstrip and see if we can find ourselves some jackal. In the meantime, let's go see how Jamie's doing.
Well, hopefully, as Sam heads towards the airstrip, he might encounter those secretary birds that apparently you saw a couple of days ago. Now, that's the reason why I've stopped, actually, is this silver cluster leaf that has created a beautiful archway over this lovely road. So make sure I don't knock Liam on the head with it. Oh. There we go. Oh. That was relatively painless. Now, I said that this afternoon didn't have any real kind of a plan except for reacquainting myself with the various animals and what the area is currently looking like since I last saw it 2 weeks ago. That being said, the Nkuhuma's tracks are all around Buffelshoek Dam. I was speaking to Taxon whilst you were with Sam, and he was just telling me that they were around the northern end of Buffelshoek Dam last night. And when I asked where they'd gone, he just sort of shook his head. I imagined him shaking his head. Obviously, I couldn't see that through the radio, but I imagined him shaking his head, and he just said to me that there are tracks absolutely everywhere, and that it would be worth taking a chance checking around here. It seems as though at least one of the females went east towards Torchwood, but as for the rest of them, nobody's entirely sure. Of course, the wonderful thing about the African bush is that it's full of incredible surprises at all times, so there could well be lions hiding out in the shade just waiting to be found. Keeping my fingers crossed for that. That being said, oopsie, nearly had a car accident. How's it? How are you?
Are you just poor here, you see?
Yeah, Lingala.
Ah, she's from Chitapel.
I'm sorry?
That was coming from Chitapel.
From Japan all the way this side?
Yeah.
Sharp, thanks, Mpo. That was very nice of him. He just wanted to point out the tracks that are in the road, coming all the way from Cheetah Pan, wherever Cheetah Pan may be. Do you know where Cheetah Pan is? I suspect it's somewhere towards, it's obviously that way, it's towards Torchwood or Wilfelshoek. Now, I just want to double check what's happening here, because there's line tracks all over the show. But I think the ones that he was pointing out might even have been male leopard tracks. They're unfortunately a little bit driven over. Let's sneak onto the side of the road here and just check. So one thing about tracking animals on Buffelshoek Cut Line, which is where we are now, the fact that there's regular vehicle traffic, it's the main access road. So it's our northern boundary, it runs along the northern end of Djuma, but it's a main access route for any private vehicles, any construction vehicles, and it does make for an interesting addition to the art that is tracking. And there we go, we've got slightly clearer tracks for the ones that he was looking at, or trying to show me. It's going to be tricky to see in this light. They're almost impossible. You guys see, well done, VM. Now that, believe it or not, is actually a leopard track. Well done, VM. In the sand, the pug marks of a leopard. If it weren't such coarse soil, I would jump out and sort of show you exactly what I'm looking for.
There's the lion.
There's the lions. Oh, that's actually really nice. Quite a nice comparison, although I wish they were closer together. VM once again proving his tracking skills. Now I know it's very difficult for you to get a sense of scale watching through the lens of the camera, so let me just hop out for a second and I'll show you using my hand for scale. And I mean, you'll just have to guess at how big my hand is, and I'll give you a hint and say it's not terribly large. But let me hop out and I'll compare the size of the leopard track to that of the lion next to my hand. Unfortunately, they're not the clearest tracks in the world, but most of you, I know, are familiar with what our different cat tracks look like. For new viewers, if I find a clearer example, I'll show you on those rather than this. Which ones are you looking at, VM, from here? These ones?
Yes, but more towards next one. Yeah, well.
There we go, thank you. So this is a big male leopard. It's a relatively large adult male leopard. And if I put my hand, let me actually show you, this is the start of the track, this is the end of the track, and these are the sides, just to make it a little bit clearer. And next to my hand, it's sort of roughly the size from the base of my thumb up to the end of my fingers. That's how large the leopard track is. Now, if we move across to the lions, and as I said, this is probably not a huge male leopard. In fact, if I had to throw out a guess, I would say it's probably about the right size for Gajima's feet. I've only ever seen him once, and very briefly. Now, if we head across to these lion tracks, and we just have a look here, I can see first of all, I can see what tacks meant. They're up and down everywhere, all over the show. No, that's a leaf, that's not a lion. That has happened to me before. And there's the end of the tracks. They're going this way. A bit tricky for you to see in this light, I know. And there's the outside edges. So if we compare it to the size of the leopard track, can you see from there, VM?
Not as good as the leopard track.
Not as well as the leopard track. But basically, the end of this lion's track falls way past the end of my fingers in terms of width and size. So it might not be the clearest example.
You've done the other one.
This one. Okay.
But turn your hand around.
Use the other hand.
No, just go sit on the other side.
Okay. Like that.
Face me.
Face you, there.
Yes, like that.
Now my shadow's in it. There, we do that.
Perfect.
This has been an incredibly complex adventure. VM has to put up with somebody who's been on holiday for 2 weeks. I might have left my brain in Johannesburg. So there you go. The size of a lion track, and actually by the smell of it, a lion that went off to defecate somewhere in the bushes here, judging by the smell. So there you go, a sort of a rough idea of the scale of a leopard's foot versus a lion's foot, and there is a tremendous difference. And of course, between a male leopard that, a large male leopard might just top 100 kilograms, so 220 odd pounds, whereas just a lioness, an adult lioness of average size, is easily about 50 kilograms larger than that. So around 110 pounds heavier than a male leopard. And that, when I said 100 kilograms, that's a very big male leopard. Oh, the leopard's tracks are relatively, I say they're relatively old. What I mean by that is they were probably from early this morning, whilst I was awake at the crack of dawn driving towards the Lowveld from Johannesburg. This leopard was walking west along Buffels of Cut Line. It's tricky when tracking male leopards though. I think he's had a little bit of a head start on us. The lions, on the other hand, given their, what would we call it? Slightly lazy is the wrong word, but slightly more relaxed habits during the middle of the day. In other words, the fact that they can sleep up to 22 hours in one day, they could well still be here. Now, what I've done in that particular area is obviously I've left footprints all around that area where we were just discussing those tracks. And we have a question about whether or not the guides and trackers actually recognize other people's or other guides or trackers' feet. And the answer is absolutely we do. Now, Callie, you were wondering about that, and the answer is yes, we do. And in particular, you'll find that those people responsible for patrolling an area, keeping the animals safe, they will have a very good idea, without us even realizing it, what sort of shoes and tracks we leave behind. Now, I'm familiar now with James's shoe print. I haven't learned Sam's yet. James and Brent's I know, Steph's I know, Brian's I know, and actually Vian's I think I know yours as well. Exactly from Bushwalk, yep. Exactly the same as James's tracks. And these particular shoes that I'm wearing, this is terrible. These particular shoes leave very, very distinctive prints. That's hugely uncomfortable, but you get the idea.
How do you even do that?
Pardon?
How do you even do that?
On the subject, actually, of hips, just for those of you who are concerned about poor Brent, of course, being in Johannesburg, just to allay some of your worries, he's absolutely fine. As you know, or as most of you know, Brent had an encounter with an elephant about 2 years ago that resulted in a very painful dislocation of his hip. And I've subsequently found out that 2 weeks after said dislocation, he was back in the rainforest walking 20 kilometers a day, or 8 miles a day. As it happens, 2 years later, the hip is starting to hurt a little bit, so he's headed off to Johannesburg, and he is absolutely fine. It's going to be a relatively minor operation, and they will just reattach or help to strengthen some of the ligaments that might have popped out. And I will leave it up to Brent to tell you the gory details when he returns. I just wanted to let you know that he is absolutely fine, up and running and healthy once again. Let's head across to Sam and see what he's found at the airstrip.
So the little birdie that we see running around here on the airstrip of Arathusa is a crowned lapwing. So that is another bird to our lists. We did see it the other day, but we didn't get it on picture. So now we've got the crowned lapwing, which takes my bird count up to 35, which is great. So that is the crowned lapwing. If you write down that on your bird list, I think it's a beautiful looking bird with those red legs, and you can see it's got its crown, a little black ring around the top of its head there, and the red beak is very prominent. You'll often see these birds, they are ground nesting birds, so you'll see them picking and eating off insects on the ground here, and most likely in open areas. So you'll find blacksmith plovers, crowned lapwings, and the Senegal will all be in these areas. So that's cool. It's nice to have another bird to the list. We've had an amazing day of birds in terms of putting them all together, and I just thought we're in the open areas at the moment, and we were sitting with a cheetah just the other day, and someone asked me, Sam, what is the difference between a cheetah and a leopard? And I only gave a few facts, and I did a bit of reading on it, and this is the one chance today that we might see a cheetah, purely because it's an open area. But just have a look here on our book. I've got this book out here, and I've got the book out that shows you a complete difference between both the leopard and the cheetah. So if we have a look quickly on the cheetah here, you can see these front marks over here. And that's said to help the cheetah with reflection, but it also is an intimidation factor. So much like your football players in America will give that kind of, doesn't have that. But also significantly, the leopard has many spots on its face, whereas you can see the cheetah doesn't have that. So those are two important characteristics that we can see. Just looking a little bit below here, we can have a look at the spot patterns. That's the sound of the crowned lapwing. So that bird call that you just heard that's the sound of that bird we just saw. To the left we have the cheetah marks, so we can see that they have single black spots throughout the body on the cheetah, and on a leopard they have rosettes. The coats on the sides of the body and the back or upper tail are made of 3 to 6 spots grouped in circles called rosettes. So those are just a few quick facts that we can have of a leopard and a cheetah. So I know that we were sitting with one the other day, but we didn't get much time to talk about them, and there is quite a big difference between the two. And the cheetah is the one that likes the open areas, so that's why we're driving in this area, not only to find the jackal, and not only the jackal, but what was the name of the bird we were looking for? We were looking for the secretary bird. And this is where we see secretary airlines, because we see them running down the airstrip and flying off into the distance. So hopefully we get to see a secretary bird, or a jackal, or a cheetah, but it's okay if we don't see any of them. Do our best. You can see we are quite clearly on the airstrip this afternoon. The wind is blowing quite strongly, so I have to kind of duck down so I don't make too much noise. So someone's calling me on the radio. I just want to pick this up. I'll chat to them now. So you can see an aeroplane in the distance here. So actually, when we were driving in here, myself and Dave heard the sound of an aeroplane landing. So I think any jackal that was actually in this area is probably most likely gone, and seeing a massive bird like that flying in would definitely give you a fright. But this is our chance, so we are looking in every direction to see if we can find a jackal. This is only our 3rd or 4th time coming down to Arathusa. So I pretty much only know the airstrip when I come to Arathusa. Cheapest, can you like feel that wind? It's so strong. And often when we have wind like this, it will bring rain. So maybe this will bring some rain with it. So it doesn't seem, we've got some impala on the other side there. Some male impalas. So those were some male impala, as you can see by the horns, that they're in the rutting season. So that's a bachelor group of impalas that are by the airstrip. Ellen would like to know where Shadow is, and potentially if we could find Shadow and her cubs, and if I should ask the guides here. Yes, so I did ask them the other day if they had seen them, but apparently that Shadow has been seen on Elephant Plains. That's where most of the sightings were seen over the last 2 days, were at Elephant Plains. But they said that I should look around the area as well, to the south, because there might be something that will cross over into Arathusa. So we're just going to drive around Arathusa quickly and see what we could find, Ellen. But I'll also ask any safari guide that comes past us, or I'll ask them on the radio if Shadow has been located today. And if she has, we'll do our best to find her and do our best to view those infamous cubs that we still haven't seen yet. Hopefully we get to see Shadow. I'd love to see her. We've seen Inkanyeni, but I haven't seen her. I think I heard Daisy Face. Daisy Face. Would like to know. Not Daisy Face. It was Daisy Place. Sorry, Daisy Place. It's a really nice name. And you would like to know about any other relationships that are out here. Well, okay, so we've learned about a commensalistic relationship, and that is the relationship between a drongo and an elephant. But let's talk about something that's mutual. What is a mutual relationship that exists out in the wilderness? And I've spoken about it a few times. You can see a mutual relationship between a hornbill and a mongoose. So the mongoose will open up the ground to help the hornbill collect any insects that he's trying to find in the ground. And in favor of doing so, the hornbill will be an alarm system for that mongoose to say, look, there's a leopard coming. So it's a mutualistic relationship in the sense that the hornbill is helping the mongoose and the mongoose is helping the hornbill. And a parasitic relationship, as we've spoken about, is that with a tick and an animal or us. So when a tick arrives on us, which I've had many ticks on me before, they'll suck our blood and then leave us. It will use us as a host. So we are harmed and it's benefited. So that is a parasitic relationship. And, you know, Daisy Place, I'll do my best to bring that into context this afternoon. I'll make that a kind of theme for the afternoon. If I see any relationships that I know quite well, then I'll bring them in, whether it's a jackal that we see or Shadow in the cubs. I'll try and bring that kind of theme straight into our journey this afternoon. Still don't really know what I'm doing when I come to Arathusa. It's quite exciting. At the same time, it's just an adventure. I'm going to enjoy this adventure while it lasts. So, while me, Dave, and Elvis the Ellie go around looking to see if we can find Shadow and any of the other creatures of Arathusa, let's go and see how Jamie's doing on the beautiful property of Djuma. We'll see now.
I do hope that Sam manages to find Shadow. I haven't seen her in weeks since she first started denning with her cubs. It would be really exciting to see her once again. Although apparently you all, while I was on leave, apparently you saved up all of the best sightings for when I was away. Apparently you did see Shadow, so she has been around. And speaking of animals that have been around, just a quick update on the Nkuhuma tracking situation. They all very casually, or at least most of them, casually crossed east into Torchwood, which is across our Traverse area, so a place where we cannot follow. Taxon and Andrew are following up on their tracks for now. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll get an update relatively soon about where it is they've gone. There's also a Birmingham Boy's track, or I assume it's a Birmingham Boy, most likely in this area. There's a male lion's tracks with them. So they've wandered off to the east, but I'm still checking very carefully carefully in this area just because you never know when you might encounter a straggler. It's happened several times in the past that I've just found not necessarily a lioness, although that does occur, but very often a male, separate from the rest of its group in a completely unexpected place to where he might usually be. So let's check carefully along and see if we can't find this Birmingham boy that's wandered through. I mentioned, of course, that there's always a big difference in the bush compared to just in the 2-week period that I've been gone. And it's amazing to just see how much the bush has really truly recovered. Oh, awesome. Can you see it from there?
Go back.
Back a bit.
Let's go.
There. Oh, too far?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Well spotted, VM. There we go. Being mobbed. Oh. Didn't even have a chance to see what it was there. It was one of the big eagles. It didn't look like a tawny, but dislodged from its perch by the somewhat extraordinary actions of a fork-tailed drongo dive bombing it. I always find it incredible whenever we witness a behavior like that mobbing behavior. I always find it amazing how particularly full of attitude, well spotted, VM, by the way, and incredible filming, as always. But it's amazing how much courage and almost brazenness there is to the attitude of the very small in comparison forked-tailed drongo. I know you were looking at one with Sam earlier. And their sheer tenacity in taking on birds far larger than themselves, obviously having the advantage of agility in order to keep themselves from becoming that particular bird of prey's next meal. But size means nothing to a fork-tailed drongo, and I'm sure many of you know dog breeds with a very similar nature. There are certain little dog breeds, and I'm thinking specifically of small terriers of the dog variety that do not seem to have any kind of concept as to exactly how small they really are. And dachshunds as well, or wiener dogs. I don't know, they've got lots of different names, but they certainly have a great deal of attitude, very similar to the fork-tailed drongo. And if you want to see just how incredible that fork-tailed drongo's, first of all, flight control, but also sheer courage really is, the lovely ladies in Final Control have prepared a clip for you in slow motion, so let's have a look. There you go, just a quick recap of just how incredible that drongo's actions truly were. You can imagine what an irritation that must be to an eagle like that. And thank you to our lovely ladies, and thank you, Kirst, for that replay in slow motion. Just imagine how incredibly frustrating it must be for a bird of prey like that to be knocked constantly on the head by smaller birds. Sorry, just give me 1 second.
I'm going to check which car mark you there and maybe come eastwards.
I just wanted to hear how the tracking progress. The tracking progress is going in the search for the Nkuhumas. They still haven't found them yet, but they're checking all around Torchwood Dam. So at least we've set them on the right direction. And Andrew was just having a conversation with Mike, both of whom work for Cheetah Plains. And they were discussing a visit to the hyena den. Now, Cindy, you were wondering if there was any chance we could go to the hyena den this afternoon. And you clearly read my mind, because that is exactly where I would like to go once it gets a little bit cooler. Our regular viewers know that I have a certain soft spot for the spotted hyenas, especially the young ones that we've watched growing up from, basically, I wouldn't say from birth, but certainly from only a couple of weeks old. And the spotted hyena den is most certainly my happy place. And every time I return from leave, I love to pay a visit just to see just how much they've grown. And I hear that the spotted hyenas very kindly not yet moved their den site. So yes, that is, depending on what happens, of course, and depending upon what we see, that is most definitely on the cards. I'm just going casually along our eastern boundary just to check, first of all, that none of the lions have crossed back, done a quick loop, and also to see whether or not there's any sign of Karula, of course. I mean, I'd have to be crazy not to want to see her or have an encounter with her, a sighting with her, especially after the phenomenal sightings of her young cubs that you got to enjoy over the last week or so. Just doing a quick toss-up in my mind about which direction I'm going, Trying to decide whether I want to go left or right. Or straight or right, actually, is probably a better description. And Genevieve, thank you very much for the warm welcome back. Genevieve is one of our regular viewers watching in New York. And Genevieve, you were wondering, since the bushwalk camera seems to be back up and running, whether or not I will be taking you guys on a walk anytime soon. And yes, absolutely. I still have to ask James exactly what the presenter schedule is going to be, but I could well be doing a bushwalk tomorrow morning. And there is nothing I enjoy more than being out in this particular beautiful area on foot. So that's something that I am very much looking forward to. And just an exciting hint, preview to the future. Now that I am back and it is no longer Sam and James, and of course Steph coming and going, having extra responsibilities apart from those involved with presenting, but since I'm back on the ground, there's now 4 of us, including Steph, which means that instead of just having 2 vehicles, we're actually going to have 3. We're going to have 2 vehicles and a walk, so 3 different feeds. 3 different groups of people looking for wonderful things to show you. You definitely know you've been away from the bush for a considerable period of time where you just have to stop and look at the hornbills along the way. Liam, to the left of them, there's a little black bird fluttering about, and it looks like it might be a scimitar bull. Is it gone? It's hidden now. It's ducked behind. It's just underneath that starling. I think we've come upon a small bird feeding party. Lots of different species together in a group, including the grey go-away bird. You can see how windy it is when we look at it this closely. Oh, as it disappears behind some bushes, along with almost every other bird. Oh, there the hornbills darting about the road. I just want to keep looking. And while we're sitting here with an iconic animal of the African bush, a warm welcome to Mrs. Friedman's class. Oh, it disappears the yellow-billed hornbill. Now, this is definitely something that I have missed. Our regular viewers know that we do school drives. So welcome to the Greater Kruger National Park area in South Africa. Basically, the way this whole thing works is that what you are seeing on your screen is happening right here in the middle of the Sabi Sands Game Reserve in South Africa. There's probably just a couple of seconds delay between what I'm seeing in real life and what you are seeing on your screen. And just to introduce myself, my name is Jamie. I have a wonderful gentleman behind me called Liam, who is operating the camera and bringing you all of these great views. So let us head out on a great safari experience together. Now, you haven't been with us since the start of drives, so what we've been doing is we've been tracking lions. Unfortunately, the lions gave us the slip and disappeared across our boundary to an area that we are not allowed to drive on just yet. Now I've changed my plans and I'm heading along to where our lovely Queen of Djuma, a female leopard known as Karula, with her 2 cubs, was last seen. And her cubs are just 3 months old and adorable little bundles of fluff. And despite their young age, from the pictures that I've seen, I've just come back from being on holiday, but from the pictures I have seen, they are already showing off their fearsome predatory skills and feeding off the kills that Mom has brought them to. So already just 3 months old and almost completely weaned off mother's milk. And of course, that's an essential adaptation of predators out here. Essentially, the longer you have to lactate, the longer they have to produce milk, the more impact that has on the female's body, because she's got to put a lot of resources into feeding her young cubs. And so the quicker she can get them onto solid meat, the better. Now, hopefully you will be around for when we head across to the hyena den, because they are the one exception to that particular rule. They actually feed their cubs for far longer. To show you something. He's hiding very, very still because it thinks that we can't see it, thinks that we haven't seen it. It's a little, what's known as a steenbok. Can you see it there, just with that faint red color? There you go, you can just see the eyes and its nose. One of the tiniest little antelope species that you get out here. Smaller even than a collie, a border collie, for example. Much tinier. You can even see the flies wandering about its face, and because it's hidden behind the bush, in this case a guari bush, because it's hidden there, the steenbok likes to stay as still as possible until the last possible moment before it runs away. And that's one of the ways that it escapes predators. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure whether you guys noticed it. Oh, quick scratch. Scratch behind the ears. It's a little female, by the way. Just as she lowered her head, I could see that she didn't have any horns. So it is a female steenbok. Those beautiful big eyes. Whoop. Not quite comfortable with us anymore, and off she dashes. I'm not sure whether you noticed or not, but did you see how in the eye there was a slight milkiness, sort of a pale color to the eye? And I think that female might have had some kind of damage to her eye, maybe is getting a cataract, or it might just be the way that the light was reflecting off her eye.
Many of them, they are called the large herd. So these are one of the big 5 in South Africa, the buffalo. And it's a big group consisting of some males, a lot of females, and lots of little young buffalo. We are very lucky to be with them this afternoon. We are happy to say hello to the independent middle school, Mrs. Friedman, and all you wonderful kids. So hopefully we're going to go out there and find as many of the big 5 as we can, but also the little 5, what else we can see, little beetles to birds to flowers to trees. Any questions, please, #Safari Live. I'd love to know what you're enjoying and what you want to see. Let's go back to this big, large herd of buffalo that are here. So we are sitting with them, and this, as I said just now, consists of mostly females and young calves. So I'm just going to move ahead a little bit so we can get some more visual then. Sunny would like to know, how often do we get to see lions? Sunny, we see lions quite often. We saw a lion yesterday. We were with lots of female lions last night. And lions love to eat what we're looking at right now. These are the buffalo, and we've been a few times where the lions will be trailing these big buffalo herds, so we might be lucky to see one this afternoon, Sonny. Hopefully, when we drive through here, we might see some tracks of a lion, and then we'll track it and show you a beautiful lion. But at the moment, we're going to sit with this big, large herd because it's not often we get these big, large herds that walk through our properties, and they'll be grazing all the grass beneath them there. You can see, look how, that's a male over there. You can see how big their horns are, buffaloes. Kier, Asia, and Carmen, such beautiful names. You're asking me if I've ever been attacked by a lion. Is that what you're asking me, or attacked by a buffalo? I haven't been attacked by either, but I have encountered a buffalo when I was on foot once. I was walking in the bush on my own, and I walked into this buffalo that was just down the road from me, and he just stared me down. He was just looking at me like this with his eyes. And I just said, "Hi, Mr. Buffalo. I'm not trying to make any problems here. I'm going to turn around and walk away." And I turned around and I walked away, and the buffalo just followed me. And it was quite scary, actually, but I knew that he was just trying to see where I went, and I showed him that I was going very, very far away from him, and then after that he went off and he did his own thing. So I haven't been attacked, thank God. That's why I'm still alive and I'm doing well. But you've always got to be careful of these buffalo because they can be so scary, genuinely. Them and the elephants, you've got to be careful of those two. Truvon would like to know, why do buffalo live in herds? That's a very good question, Truvon. They live in herds because it's just the way in which their social structure works. Have a look at those two over there. They're starting to put their two bosses together. And that's very cool to watch. I'm just going to get in a position. Can you see it from there, Dave?
Not quite.
Not quite. Let's see if we can... I'm going to move so that you can see it from here. Yep. Look at that. You can see the two buffaloes are ramming their heads together. So their social structure, which means their family group, how they like to grow up, is in a big, large herd because that helps them grow up at, safety in numbers. Ooh. Can you see how they're getting angry, these two buffalo? Not angry, they were maybe just playing with each other there. He's got a nice big piece of grass in his mouth. He looks like a cowboy. Brennan would like to know, do buffalo have a favorite food? Brennan, they do have a favorite food, and that is grass. They love to eat grass. It's a definite favorite of them. Let's have a look. You can see him grazing some grass there. Tastes so good. There we go. And that... Raneem, that's a very clever question. You're asking, can buffalo be domesticated? Well, yes, there are occasions where people will domesticate and have had buffaloes as domestic animals, but it's not often. It's not like having cows. It's very, very different. But I have heard of some farms that will farm buffalo. It's mainly breeding projects that do that, which means that they grow them to then sell them. Beautiful. So that's a female. The female's boss is quite a bit smaller. The boss is the horns on top of its head. And the male's one is probably, so we've got a good sighting of the two horns. There is the female one. If we go to the left, is a male one. Can you see the size difference between those horns? So it is quite, those, almost looks like a hairdo. Very cool hairdo. Brennan would like to know, how large can those horns get? Well, I've never really tried to measure them in lengthwise, but if you can imagine, I think the largest must be over 1.5. Oh, look at this big male coming here. Sorry, this is a very, very big male. So try and see if you can get some perspective on size by just looking at this one that's having a look straight at us. He is a big, and you can see he's very, very old. And look, you can see a lot of the skin on top of his back has been lost. Not the skin, the hair. So you can tell the age of a buffalo not only by looking at the skin, because it's quite open, but also by the boss, how the boss has kind of deteriorated because of parasites. So we're talking about parasites, but earlier, parasites will go in and eat that buffalo horn. Mason is asking, do buffalo have any symbiotic relationship? Well, very similar to that of the drongo that we spoke about, which is the type of bird that will come and eat the insects off the back of walking animals. You often find those birds that will come and eat behind the buffalo, but let's just have a look at this buffalo. He's getting very, very close to us now. A symbiotic relationship, that is with a buffalo. So, well, you know what buffalo do is that they open up areas. You can see how many are here now. So you've got this big buffalo, and so imagine this buffalo plus 200 that are walking in a big herd, and when they walk, they'll open the areas up. So you can imagine it used to be quite thick and all of that, but they'll go in and they'll squash the plants, they'll eat, they'll graze, and the foliage becomes a lot thinner and there's not as many trees around, and that helps for other animals to live there, like some of the antelope, which are like impalas, or the other species such as bushbuck and inyalas and that. But the inyala and the bushbuck like to be in the bush, in the thick bush, and the impala like to be in the open areas. So a symbiotic relationship can be seen between an impala that likes the open areas. And of course the oxpeckers. Wow, how did I forget the oxpeckers? The oxpeckers will eat the ticks off the buffalo. So hopefully we can see an oxpecker. It's a type of bird that jumps on the back of these buffaloes. It hitches a ride wherever it goes, and at the same time it'll collect some of the ticks from the buffalo. So it'll jump around the body and see if it can collect any of those ticks. And so that's a mutualistic relationship where the bird is benefiting from the food that the tick is on the body, and the buffalo is benefiting from the loss of ticks, or getting those ticks away. So that is a symbiotic relationship between a bird and a buffalo out here. But they are a very, very beautiful species. I really love them. So Angelica would like to know, do male buffaloes fight to have a female? Yes, they most certainly will. When they notice that a female is an estrus, a buffalo will move towards her and try and show her that he's the more dominant one. So often you'll find the male buffaloes fighting against each other to show who's stronger, who's more dominant to take on the female. So that happens with most species out here, how they will fight to have the females, and you'll see that with the antelopes, which are like deer. So you have deer in America. So I believe that your school is close to Virginia. So what are the beautiful animals that you have close to Virginia? Do you have deers that walk around there? Or anything very similar to a buffalo? I know that you have a cougar. Okay, so you guys live in an urban environment, and you have an idea of what domestic animals are like, and some of the animals that live close to the city, as well as the zoo animals. Alright, so we didn't see an oxpecker now on one of the backs, but you can most certainly hear them. The wind is blowing. So we'll see if we can find you an oxpecker before we leave these buffaloes. But for now, let's go and jump on board with Jamie, who is driving through the beautiful Mawati drainage.
Believe it or not, you are looking into somebody's home. Here you go. As we start to come out, you get an idea of the bigger picture. A hole in a wall of sand. What I want to see if you can do, and it's a difficult question, but I want to see if any of you can tell me who you think might live there. And we'll give you a sort of an idea of just how large this particular sand wall is and how big the holes are, so that you get a better idea and you can sort of guess as to who might make a hole like that in the middle of a muddy, sandy-facing cliff in a riverbed, essentially. Let's see if you can't work out what particular type, and it doesn't matter if you don't get the species, that's okay. But I want to know if you can guess what type of animal might have made that their home. Now, while you were with Sam and the buffalo, we have arrived in a dry riverbed, a very sandy, dry riverbed. Now, most of you, thick sand. Now, most of you probably don't realize, but South Africa's in the grips of a really, really terrible drought. Probably the worst drought that this area's experienced in the last 100 or so years. So the last good rains that we had were a couple of weeks ago, and even with those rains, we probably had, I would guess, at about a quarter, maybe even less, of the average annual rainfall, so the amount of rain that we usually get. Now, what you might be noticing is that I'm driving a car as we drive through this beautiful dry riverbed. I'm driving the car, but I'm not using my hands. Look, see, my hands are here. And in fact, I could leave this car to drive itself through here. That being said, please don't ever, when you do start to drive, please don't ever take yourselves on a drive without holding onto the steering wheel. This is something that only works in thick sand. But yes, and it's amazing how this vegetation changes completely when we get to these riverine areas. Now, I hear that you guys are guessing the answers to our quiz about the holes in the sides of the banks. Here's another one for you. I'm hearing the answer snakes, and I'm hearing meerkats, as well as lizards. Now, the interesting thing about this question, you've also guessed mice as well. Now, the interesting thing about the question that I've asked you is that it's not impossible that there could be a lizard living in there now, so that's a very good answer. And a snake maybe could transport itself in there, but it would be a very interesting mouse that decided to climb and dig its way into such a steep embankment. They could do it, but the mice tend to dig their little tunnels into the ground. Whereas this cliff face is essentially completely flat, it's sheer, if that makes sense. So all of those are really good answers, but they're not quite the answer that we're looking for. And I'm pretty sure you're going to get it very soon because you're all thinking along the right track. So lizards and snakes might live in there now. A mouse would have a difficult time managing to stay up there and dig at the same time. And the same goes for a meerkat. One thing about a meerkat, though, is that we actually don't get them here. Meerkats are more towards a desert area. So if you go from basically in the same line of where we are, but you could go a little bit further to the west towards the Kalahari area, that's where you're going to find a meerkat. What we have here, and we might even see them, I've seen them here before, so we'll keep our eyes peeled. What you might see here is a mongoose. Now, a mongoose is essentially it's the same thing as a mongoose, a meerkat. It's just a different type. Also that, almost like a ferret or a pine marten, very similar in shape and structure. And let's see as we go along. But the reason that hole hasn't been made by either mongoose or by meerkats is the fact that mongoose, dwarf mongoose in particular, will choose to nest in old termite mounds, and hopefully Sam and I will as well. We'll both keep a lookout for you in order to show you where a mongoose might like to live. And while I keep you guessing, I have something to show you. Now, I mentioned that we're in the terrible drought, but I also mentioned that meerkat are only found around the more arid areas, desert areas. Carson, you were wondering about comparing our biome to a desert biome. So typically in sort of our desert regions, you're looking at about 200 millimeters or less per year of rain. very, very arid, sort of 200 to 400, 400 is a bit much, about 200 millimeters of rain would be about the maximum that a desert area would get. And of course, it's also dependent on the type of soil that you get, and that, again, is connected. Everything comes back to the soil. Everything is tied to the type of rock and the type of soil layer that you have. But in areas that are desert-like, the soils tend to be particularly red. And the reason why it's that case in this area is because the more rain that flows through a soil, the more it washes away the iron, and iron takes on a very red color in its chemical form. So here we get a lot more rain, between sort of 400, 500 mils, possibly even more on a good year. So we've got a lot more in the way of grass and vegetation areas. So we're actually what's known as the savanna biome. We're in a savanna biome, and what basically sort of is typical of that is a balance between lots of grasses but also lots of trees. And it's a very, very fine and delicate balance, because too many grasses and the trees can't grow up, and too many trees and the grass doesn't get enough sunlight. That's what separates it from a forest on the one side and a desert on the other. And the reason I've stopped here, I don't want to deprive you of your journey along the river, but I just wanted to show you something interesting. Always important when you get out of a vehicle, obviously we're trained to deal with these kinds of environments. It's always important to just make sure you look around first before you jump out of the vehicle and go running off into the bush. You never know what might be around. But this is what I've come to show you. And it's surprisingly heavy. And its horn just fell off. So you were looking at the buffalo with Sam. It's all in my shoe. You were looking at the buffalo with Sam, and that's why I wanted to stop here and just show you this incredible buffalo skull. So what in particular I wanted to show you was this patch of solid bone. So unlike the deer in sort of North America areas, the deer that you might have seen, instead of having antlers made of blood vessels, these animals have bone. So this entire section here, and it's thick. This is where the brain is. The brain is under here. And the bone is about this thick around it. So to protect them when they fight each other and when they bash heads like that. And gradually as they grow older, that bone grows all the way out and around to form the horns. Now this guy's been dead a considerable period of time, but he does give us a really nice option, or really nice opportunity to show you this. This, around here, is the keratin layer. This is the keratin layer, and it's basically like your fingernails. It surrounds the whole of the bone, and this is when the buffalo is alive. This is living bone. And if I do this, it's a bit gross, but I can actually take this off. And just like everything out here, it is a source of food for a particular type of animal. And have a look at this. All around these little structures coming out here, those are the larvae, so the caterpillars of a type of moth known as a horn moth. So there you go, just a quick, I don't want to be off the vehicle for too long, but this is a quick anatomy lesson, into a buffalo skull. And his skull, I'm going to put this aside. His skull, just like this, just the top part of it, probably weighs, I would say, 12 kilograms, which is about a big bag of flour, which is 26 odd pounds. And just have a look quickly. Oh, yuck. Have a look quickly at his teeth. Oh, half of him, lots of dirt falling off him. But just an idea of what a buffalo's teeth looks like. Those ridged molars for constantly chewing the cud. Cool. We'll say goodbye to Mr. Buffalo, although I think Mr. Buffalo said goodbye quite a long time ago. Give my hands a good shake and leave him there to continue to feed the various types of scavengers and parasites, and just trying to shake the bits of horn out of my shoe. And we'll leave him there to spend the rest, or for the skull to spend the rest of its days. And this was most likely from a lion kill. The reason I say lion kill, There's no other predator capable of bringing down such a big animal. And in fact, there's some more of him over there as we go along. There you go.
Lost your mic.
Oh dear. We appear to have a slight sound problem. I'll just have to speak up for the moment. Can you hear me if I talk to the back mic? Just bear with me one moment as we sort out our sound issue. You can have a look at the rest of our buffalo boy and see if you can't figure out which particular part of him that happens to be.
Do you wanna?
So you've just been with Jamie and some buffalo, and we are still with the big breeding herd of buffalo. And what we thought we would do for you now is just drive through this big breeding herd. So we're just seeing one part of it right now. So if we drive slowly, you'll start to notice them all around us, and you can get a better feel for how big this breeding herd is. They're on both the left and right of us. So let's go nice and slowly next to them. It's in beautiful light. How's this light? Look at this one right in the light here. Good evening. It's a lady. There's a whole bunch of them now to the left of us. Look at that group. Sunny would like to know if they're quite used to us driving around. Sunny, they do get startled when we drive around. They'll have a look at us. As you can see, they're kind of viewing us. So I'm not sure what we are, trying to smell us. But when we're on foot, Sunny, they get such a fright. They really don't like humans. When we're on foot, they smell us and they'll start running away. There's even more to our right here. This is a huge breeding herd of buffalo. Is that a young one? Oh, beautiful. Maybe we can catch that one. Look at the light that is coming off that young buffalo there. So the young buffalo need to be very, very careful. I'm just going to get into a position where we can view it a bit better. They need to be careful. Here's a young one running across. Whoa, there we go. I think that was Brittany. Brittany would like to know, what is the life expectancy of a buffalo? Well, Brittany, of course it's difficult in terms of, when they're getting predated on, but it's probably around 20 years. They'll live up to around plus minus 20 years, these buffalo. When they start getting old, they start getting a lot more tired, and it's difficult for them to get away from the predators. Let's see if we can see that young one again, which is very, very cool to see it. They're all around us now. Wow, this is amazing to be in. Oh, look at this one. Sorry, David, but this one's smelling us over here. Let's watch how he reacts with us. So David had to swing around to have a look at this buffalo smelling us now. So Kia and Sunny wanted to know, will you have anything like a cheetah coming and attack us? Well, not us, attacking a buffalo. Kia and Sunny, most likely not. With a cheetah, they will look for much smaller things. They won't attack a buffalo, purely because it's too large for them. It's too much of a risk for them to try and attack such a large animal. So cheetah like to go for the small things. So you saw a steenbok with Jamie a little bit earlier, and that's the type of antelope that they like to catch, the small little ones, like the common duiker, the steenbok. But maybe, you never know, if there was a young buffalo calf that was lurking around and wasn't being looked after by its mother, it would easily go and kill it, because sometimes buffaloes will leave their young lying up in the grass somewhere. just for a period of time. So it can happen. Cheetah eating a young buffalo. They're all around us grazing. This is probably the biggest herd I've seen since I've been here. Now you can quite clearly see that this one's browsing. Carson would like to know, how does this buffalo skin feel? Carson, I've never actually touched the skin of a buffalo. Have you, Dave?
I haven't.
No, I can't say I've ever done it before, but I'm just trying to imagine what it feels like. I think it's quite soft. Just looking at it from here, it looks quite soft, eh? But I don't think it's soft like like a dog sort of soft. I think it is quite coarser than that, but it does look fairly soft. Don't you think, Dave?
Yeah, maybe much like a cow.
Much like a cow. I don't know if you've ever felt a cow before. Could feel very similar to that of a cow. Mason and Brittany would like to know, how does the herd protect one that is quite sick or in a bad shape? So often what they'll do is they'll try and protect them and have them in the middle of the herd if they're moving at quite a quick pace. But you know, elements don't favor the sickly out here, and if there is a sick and weak buffalo that cannot keep up with the herd, he will be left, or he or she will be left behind from the herd, and eventually that animal will be killed by a predator such as a lion or a leopard. So it's not easy out there if you're a sick buffalo out in the wild, because they have to, protect the greater, which is the whole group, and they can't stick around trying to help a sick one. But there will be times when they just keep that sick one in the middle, or the injured one in the middle of the herd, and try and graze with that. So we have had probably one of the best sightings I've had with buffaloes in a long time. And while we leave here, I'll let you know that we're going to try our best to see if we can find something like of a predator status out here on Arathusa. But while we do so, let's go see how Jamie's doing.
And while Sam goes off looking for predators, we've come across a group of some of their favorite prey. These beautiful antelope are known as impala, and in this case it is just a group of females. Now, at the rest of the other times of the year, you will see males and females all grouped together. The males having horns, the females do not, but you've arrived on the back of the safari vehicle at exactly the breeding time for impala. So they're going through what is known as rutting. It is rutting season, where one large male will collect together a group of females, or a group of ewes, as they are known, gather them together, chase them whenever they try and leave, and fight off and scare off any competing males. And they'll manage to do this for about a week, at which point they'll try and mate with as many females as possible, but they only chase and fight and mate. They don't stop to eat, and they don't stop to groom or even to sleep properly. So by the end of about 7 days, they are so exhausted that a new male will be able to come in and take over. And just like that steenbok we saw before, there he is, already pushing his weight around. You can see how much larger he is than the females, with those impressive backward curving horns. Herding the females, testing their scents, trying to see if any of them are ready for mating. Now, this is one animal that I would suspect is probably going to be the most resilient in the face of the drought that is on its way. The reason behind that is it's what's known as a mixed feeder. Now, impala, over hundreds of thousands of years, has perfected the physical form that it has evolved to take, and it has stayed the same for a considerable period of time. But as a mixed feeder, it will eat both grass and trees, which makes it incredibly adaptable for the climatic conditions that it faces. Now, Brennan, you've asked a really intelligent question about whether or not, with the lack of water going into the drought, whether the animals will rely on the trees for moisture. And the answer is absolutely. You can almost think of the trees as the guardians of what's left of the water over the next few months. There's a young male wandering through in this beautiful sunlight. So essentially, with their far deep-reaching root systems, trees are capable of reaching right down below the soil layer, male making sure he keeps his ladies in line. Isn't he beautiful? Essentially herding them just like a sheepdog herds sheep, making sure that there are no stragglers left behind. But yes, with their deep root systems, the trees are capable of accessing water below the surface of the soil and storing it in their cells.
Back to the Northern Channel. Any update?
Storing it in their cells and within the xylem, and of course within the root system of the trees itself. And at times when the times get really bad, whenever elephants move through an area, they will actually push over trees and expose the root systems and the leaves right at the top for other antelope to eat. And speaking of antelope, Dominique, you were wondering, what is the difference between a gazelle and an antelope? And the answer is a gazelle is a type of antelope. So it's essentially what now I can't think of a good example. My mind just went completely blank. I've left my brain on holiday.
Lion for cat.
A lion for a cat. A gazelle is like a lion for the cat family. So you've got impala, and then you've got something known as a Thompson's gazelle, which is a different type of species. So antelope are divided into different families, which are actually officially known as tribes. So impala is part of its own tribe, and then, for example, you get what's known as the spiral-horned antelope family, and that includes the kudu and the nyala and the bushbuck, hopefully all things that we could see on this afternoon's sunset safari. And a gazelle is just a different type, so it's a sort of a grouping within a grouping, if that makes sense. So that's the difference. All gazelles are antelope, not all antelope are gazelles. Figure that one out. That's right, it does make sense. It's a tricky one, but it's right. So thank you, Dominique, for that question. Now, there's another little bird sitting on the top of this tree that's going to show some equal adaptation to tough times ahead. This is a fork-tailed drongo, one of the most intelligent little birds out here, known for its fantastic mimicry skills. Now, the one thing I have noticed, I know that Sam mentioned them earlier, but the one thing I have noticed with the effects of the drought is the effect that it's had on birds and where they are in terms of their sort of distribution throughout the country. So, Sunny, you were wondering about the animals moving in different places because of the drought, and the birds are the best example because, of course, they have wings, so they can go where the insects go. And that's why I think, oh, awesome, there's a lilac-breasted roller. Well done, Viam. That beautiful flash of color that you saw very briefly. So the birds have moved wherever there's been a bit more rain, so wherever there's a sort of an explosion of insect population. But yes, absolutely, the animals will go places that they wouldn't normally go. And it's an interesting thing, because this particular area that we're in, the Northern Sabi Sands, people have put dams in. So they've basically created artificial water. And I think let's carry on driving, then we increase the chance of seeing something else. So essentially, they've put water holes in here, which wouldn't normally be here, and has brought a whole load of different animals to this particular area. Now, with the drought, those dams are drying up, And the area is actually starting to see some of the species that would have been very, very common here many years ago before the dams. So something, for example, like a sable antelope. But yes, the animals will go different places, and essentially the overarching rule as to where they will go is they will try and follow the food. And at the end of it all, it will be the lack of food and the lack of nutrients that probably will cause the most fatalities during this drought. Now, there's one animal that I mentioned earlier that is exceptionally good at helping the other animals survive the drought. Let's go across to Sam and see what he's got.
You're gonna go after me.
So we have just found a big bull elephant. He is not a very happy man at the moment. We have just noticed that he's lifted his trunk to the side of his tusks. So we're just going to go slowly behind him, see if we can view him from a distance, and just give him the space he needs to enjoy his afternoon stroll. There he is. He's a big elephant. Isn't he beautiful? So this is a big male elephant, and you just have to be careful of them. It's because they're on their own, and if they'll communicate with you. They'll basically show you that they're not feeling too happy. And one of the things that they do is lift their trunk onto those tusks there that you can see. And he's feeling comfortable with us being behind him now. He'll let us know, trust me, if he's uncomfortable with us. But look how big he is. Isn't he just extraordinary? It's huge. Let me go see if I can get another perspective where you can not only just see his bomb, he is a huge elephant. Megan would like to know, what is the coolest animal that you have seen here? Well, Megan, it's a difficult one because we've seen so many cool animals. But I would say the coolest animal I've ever seen is probably a cheetah. I love cheetah. When we saw that cheetah, I was with Dave the other day, and we were so excited to see that cheetah, just because it's very rare to see the cheetah in these areas. So I was so excited. Probably the coolest, and they also have just such a beautiful face and nice body, and they just make me, they're very extraordinary animals to see them. So that's probably the coolest animal I've seen. But I also love birds. I'm a big fan of birds. There's a bird called a saddle-billed stork. So that elephant's just left us, and I'll just show you a very cool looking bird. Well, at least I think it's very cool. You can hear him. He's still on that tree. You can see that tree moving. He's not far away, that big elephant. So it's called a stork. It's called a saddle-billed stork. So I'm going to be very quick to show you this one. Stork. 60. So the top left is the saddle-billed stork, and I just really wanted to show you it because it is the most beautiful looking bird. I mean, you got that red, black and yellow on the beak, and it almost looks like it's got a saddle over there, so that's pretty cool. But with that, we've had such an amazing drive this afternoon. We've seen such a really big herd of buffalo, which is not often that we see, and a big elephant. And I know you spent some time with Jamie with some elephants, and we saw all sorts of stuff. So thank you, the Independent School, Mrs. Frieden, and all you lovely grade 7 students. We'll hopefully see you in the future, all with all the best for your work, your academics, and all the little bit of work you have to do within biology, ecology, and all things wonderful. For now, let's go see how Jamie's doing wherever she is on Djuma.
Well, as always, an hour just seems to go by so incredibly quickly, but well done for getting the nest question right. Our hole in the cliff wall was indeed made by a bird, and there's two different species or different types of birds that make holes in the sort of the mud like that. One is a kingfisher, the other is a bee-eater. A lot of those species are migratory. In other words, they fly north in our winter, which is what we're in now. So a lot of them have already left our shores. But that was exactly what the answer that I was looking for. It was indeed a bird hole, a bird nest. And they'll go in there and they'll lay the egg just sort of within about, I would guess about 10 inches. No, that's a bit much, 5 inches into that space, into that hole. So where we started off looking right in there. Now there won't be anybody hiding there at the moment, but next year when they come back to this particular part of South Africa, during the summer months when the insects are plentiful, they will actually return quite possibly to the exact same nest hole that they used the previous year to lay their eggs in. Isn't that amazing how birds are able to cover that tremendous amount of distance and return to exactly the same spot? And there's all kinds of magical mysteries out here just waiting to be solved, and I hope that your afternoon has attracted you to the many wonders. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your school day. We're going to sit and enjoy this lovely elephant ball. So farewell to Independence Middle School. Hope you enjoyed your time with us. There we go, he's a nice surprise. Standing in the middle of quarantine clearings. It is quite spectacular to be back here. And quarantine is very much home. Nice to return. While I was busy packing up my old bedroom, I found some of the books that I claimed from my grandfather's study after he died. They were always very special to me as a child, and I know that they were very special to him. And we used to sit and read them together when I was younger. My granddad, of course, was a wildlife warden many, many years ago. And I wanted to just read you something, and just listen to the words first before I tell you where it comes from. Of the wildlife. At the beginning, everything seems simple. From the experience of a few years, every problem of animal behavior appears to have been solved. A few more years pass, and this mental complacency becomes shaken. Finally, towards the end of a lifetime spent in observation, the student begins to comprehend how little he really knows. Successive incidents will have occurred tending to stultify conclusions so apparently well-founded that they have become firmly established in the mind as proven facts, and he may often be left with an impression of all of his efforts and studies having been largely futile. Nowhere is the truth of the proverb about a little knowledge being a dangerous thing more obvious than in matters connected with wildlife. Man, today, has such absolute power over the existence of other creatures of the earth that any action taken as the result of inaccurate observation or faulty deduction may not only cause irreparable mischief, but may defeat the very interests which it is intended to serve. After more than 40 years spent among the wild denizens of the African forest and plain, the one concrete fact that to my mind stands clear is that, within her own sphere, nature can carry out her tasks and solve her problems a great deal better than man can do them for her. Moreover, she has her own ways of wreaking vengeance, none the less sure from being tardy, for crimes committed against her and her well-considered scheme of things. Now, that was written more than 50 years ago. It was actually written in 1945 by a man called Stevenson Hamilton. Just to show you this, there's no problem in showing this, as he has long since departed this particular realm. Now, Stevenson Hamilton was the first warden of the Kruger National Park, and in fact is probably the man that we have to thank for all of this wildlife that we see before us. This is one of his original books on wildlife, and what's incredible to me is that when Stevenson Hamilton, and the words are so profound, because when Stevenson Hamilton first started to protect the area that is the Kruger Park, the things that they knew then were so vastly different to what we knew now, and at that point wild dog were shot as vermin. It was a conservation policy to shoot the predators in order to encourage the general game. And this book was written 40 years after his beginning within the Kruger National Park, and you can see how much he learned. And what fascinated me about that was just how much or how different our knowledge is going to be in 50 years' time, and whether people will be reading back on our textbooks from today or our books from today and laughing at some of the things said or enjoying some of the things that are being said. And what he said there is so true, and yet in different places, in different parts of that book, some of the things are so profoundly strange to our current way of understanding things. Now, I'm still working my way through this particular book, but I think sort of every now and again throughout the next few weeks I'll share some of the snippets with you, whether it's actually an observation. That was just the foreword. It's actually a behavioral observation of the different animals. It's essentially a textbook on animal behavior. And it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to exploring it with all of you. And it is a very special book, and it shall be absolutely treasured. And Teresa, I know that you've said what an awesome treasure I have, and absolutely. As we watch one of the magnificent denizens, as Stevenson Hamilton describes them, this beautiful Inyala bull. Oh. Something magnificent in the afternoon sunlight. He's going to disappear relatively quickly, but Teresa, yes, it's an absolute treasure, and the book will be treated as such. It's come along for the ride with the rest of my books this afternoon, but in future it will be very well protected in plastic covers. But I just thought it was too good an opportunity not to be able to share with you. And as our denizen of the wild wanders off towards the sunset, let's have a look at Sam's view of the setting sun.
The sun is departing us from the very, very western edges of Arathusa. The wind is blowing. There's a strong breeze that is blowing this afternoon. We've just had such a fantastic drive with the young kids from Virginia, the independent middle school. And now the sun is going behind that Balanites tree just in front of us. Let's take a few moments to watch the sun go down. Listen to the different birds. Take a few deep breaths in. It's not often we get to sit of the sun as it ends the day. And it's given us incredible sunlight to view the magnificent animals on Arathusa this afternoon. You can hear the sound of the cicadas going. So there's a few more minutes left of the sunset over Arathusa. It's really calmed the nerves. Do you feel quite calm now after that amazing sighting of those elephants, or that elephant? It's really, really special to watch the sunset and the sunrise wherever you are. If you can take the time to do that, you're really giving yourself a lot. Look at it, as it sets now, you can see that those beautiful beams that are shining, those reddish beams. And you've just got a couple seconds before it dips itself away for the evening. No words needed. Lose the line. It's probably my favorite time of drive. You can just sit with all of you viewers from around the world, wherever you are, and just watch the sun go down. It's very, very special moments to have. I will never take any of them for granted. With that, going back to our adventure with Ellie, myself, and Dave, we are now driving on property that we've never been on before. So both me and Dave don't know where we are, but we know for a fact that we're not on another property, so no one needs to worry. In final control, everything is in control. We know where we are. Well, we don't know where we are, but we know where we are. I've got a map here. But it's really, really exciting to just be in a place where you have no idea what you might see. Courtney, a new viewer, welcome to Safari Live, Courtney. This is all happening in real time. Right now we are driving through the bushveld, and we are currently in the northeastern part of South Africa called the Sabi Sands. Sabi Sands is a 60,000 hectare property that is part of the greater Kruger National Park. So that's where we are. Welcome to our live safari. We don't know what we might see this evening. We've seen some beautiful elephants and all sorts of animals, and now we're going to get our torch out to see if we can find anything. Doesn't matter. I really don't mind if we see nothing, but at the end of the day, to see maybe a flat-necked chameleon, a white-tailed mongoose, a honey badger, I'd be very stoked if I saw a honey badger. Very, very stoked. Look at that view. I've never seen that view before. Look how beautiful that is. Welcome to Africa, everyone. Enjoy your time. This is a good place to remember, Dave.
Definitely.
We're going to come and bring you guys here as often as we can. Promise you. There's a... See if you can get a close-up on that bird there, Dave. I'm just going to show it to you now. It's on that tree, just over there. You got it. That's it. That's a dove. There was another bird that was lying, so that still looks really cool. That dove sitting in the end of a branch. But there was another one. It looked like a bird of prey, like a gabar, goshawk. I thought it could have been, but it just flew off now into the evening towards that sunset. Truly is a beautiful road. I'm so glad we took this turn. Mr. Ellie gave us that influence. He said turn right. Did you manage to read that question? Kirsty, we're not reading any of your questions. I think it was something to do with the large herd. I think we might be losing some signal. Yeah, we're not reading anything. Sorry, Kirst. I can't get any of your questions. I couldn't. I think it was through the... No, I can't read anything. I'm sorry, Chris. We're going to get to a position where we can have some reception. Jamie's doing.
You timed that arrival particularly well, because look where we are, and look who's come out to say hello. Now surely this cannot be the January twins, but I think it is. They have grown so much. This is incredible. Doodles and Jennifer, and I'm sure many of you have been excited for me to see just how much these hyena cubs have grown. It really is so noticeable when you're away for 2 weeks. Some really low contact calls. Oh my goodness. Oh, we might get some vocalization. I'm just going to be quiet for one moment.
Text for Mike.
There's a whole load of adults calling just to the west of us, where the cubs are going now. They're going to make life a little bit difficult for us to follow them. And as you know, we're trying not to off-road as much as possible. We're only off-roading for the absolutely essential sightings, things like lions and leopards and cheetah. And these guys are slowly moving off. Let's see if we can't get a look from a different angle. They're not going to go far though. As you know, the cubs... Oh, hold on. They're now moving across in front of us. I think this is the one that was calling. Now, is that Madam with her nicked ears? She's very far away, but that looks like it might be the marks along her ears. Doesn't look big enough though, but it might just be the perspective because she's far away from me. And that was the adult that was calling. That does look like her. Intently sniffing around. And the contact calls that she was making was more to, they were not the long distance whooping calls that a hyena will give in order to sort of contact the other members of the clan and also to announce their presence to the neighboring clans, the sort of the enemy clans. This was a very low, almost inaudible ooh sound, like the sound that a mother might make calling her cubs. And the cubs have moved off in her direction. They've followed her, or at least 3 of them have. I wonder if she's not going to decide to come back in this direction. There is another den site behind this one. It's a den that they used last year, a long time ago, that actually Wiem and myself found entirely by mistake. We were actually with an elephant herd, and the hyena cubs wandered in and led us straight back to the den site. And that was months ago. This was before the birth of any of the new cubs. And I'm just wondering whether they're not moving back towards that sort of area. They might even be in the process of moving between dens. Wiem tells me that the last time he saw these cubs, they were at the den at the fire break, which is probably about 100 meters, less than 100 meters to the north of us. And it's amazing how at this Aubrey's Road area, within this block of vegetation in between the roads, they sort of rotate between the different den sites. And unfortunately, or fortunately, at least they were out and about to say hello. At least we did get to see them. But I think that might be it for our hyena sighting this afternoon. Short but sweet, and at least I had a chance to see just how much those hyena cubs have grown before they vanished off into the distance. Safari Dean going so far as to say that our hyena cubs have become sub-adults. I like that. Not quite cubs, not quite sub-adults, as we refer to June and Bella, but now January cubs are definitely still cubs. Oh, hello. Thank you very much. This is not a January cub, though, is it? Or is it? Surely not. It comes as such a surprise to see how much they've grown. I think before we abandon all hope, let's go and investigate the other side of the hyena den and just see if there's not more on the other side. Those cubs might just have been responding to one adult's calls. They did pick a den site that is probably the most difficult to navigate. Not quite as bad as the Gallagher shortcut den, but only just. I agree. I still feel as though that den site on Mvubu Road, the one that James found underneath the enormous oh no, sorry Brenda, you're actually thinking of the Philemon's Cutline one maybe. The one that was underneath the large tree was a lovely spot. Bounce, bounce. No, I think all of our cubs have gone to ground. Sorry Brenda, I'll be with you in one moment. Brenda, I agree with you. I think my top 2 favorite den sites are probably the Philemon's Cutline den. Oh, here comes somebody. There we go. Now come this way, you two naughty things. Oh, my first thought was this was November, but I think not. Sure, I'm not sure anymore. I have to see all of them together to get a good idea. The spots are similar, but it's been so long since I've seen them properly, and I'm not 100% sure anymore. I think... Oh, exhausted. Now we know male, or at least as far as we know. A bit difficult to tell there. It's a really comfortable sandy spot. The second site is nice, but Brent is right. The Philemon's Cutline and the Vuburo Den, to me, were the two best den sites. I think that the hyenas got quite upset by the fact that an elephant pushed over the large tree that was over the Philemon's Cutline Den, which has now totally changed the dynamics of that particular den and taken away all of the shade. That might be why they didn't use it very much in with this particular set of cubs. Corky was there for a very brief moment with the December twins before she moved them across to where Pretty was with November. It's hard to believe that these are the same hyena cubs that we were watching just months ago. Tiny little dark-coloured creatures without any spots at all and far less coordination, tumbling down the walls of the termite mound. They're now like little miniature, slightly fluffier adults. Now we've arrived at just the right time as the last few rays of light are touching the den site and illuminating the cubs. And Mia in Illinois, you were wondering if we can use spotlights yet at the den site. And I think we'll have to reach a general consensus. My suggestion is not just yet, just because the January cubs are still quite young, but I think we're definitely getting to the point now where they are aware enough and old enough to be able to disappear into the den site. And the reason that we don't spotlight, or why Wild Earth has a policy of not spotlighting the cubs, is because at night it's when their two biggest threats, leopards and lions, are their most active. And by spotlighting them, particularly when they're younger, we just didn't want to add an extra level of distraction to their everyday life, illuminating them unnecessarily, whilst their eyes are just as capable of dealing, there we go, into the den. Their eyes are just as capable of dealing with the light as an adult's eyes would be, but as I said, they don't quite have the same level of alertness and awareness that the adults do, so we didn't want to add any extra level of distraction to them. That being said, they are getting older now. The January twins are about five-ish months, 4.5, 5 months. What month are we in? May. Yes, that would be about right. Probably about 5 months, because we don't see them straight after birth. We knew that they were there for probably a good 2 weeks before they first emerged. So no, we won't be staying past the sort of spotlighting time, but we are rapidly approaching the point at which it will probably be okay. The question is, will we decide to do it at the den site at all? And that will be a matter that is up for debate, because there's no set rules out here in terms of how you approach certain things. There's just a discussion amongst guys and putting together everybody's experiences and ethics and deciding when it is appropriate and when it isn't. And of course, as the Wild Earth team, for us, the most important thing is the well-being of the animal, rather than... And we get to spend enough time with them during the daylight hours. We don't have to worry too much about night. And besides, as the sun starts to set and it gets a little bit darker, I want to go and explore Buffel's Cutline and see if Gajima's going to come back and around. But before we do, oh, I think our cubs have all vanished. It seems as though it's completely empty. Gone to ground now that all of the adults have disappeared. Now, I mentioned that the one that we were looking at, or that November might be, we suspect is a young male. Oh, hello. We have an arrival. It's like the hyena that was calling earlier. I'm trying to get an idea of who this may be. A bit tricky at this distance as it wanders off. Now this seems like one of the females. It is almost certainly one of the females. It is a tricky thing with hyenas in terms of telling the difference between them. So Renee, who is one of our newer viewers, welcome to the Sunset Safari. Let's go back around. And while we go back around, answer your question about how you tell the difference between a male and a female spotted hyena. And the answer is, of course, it's very tricky. And researchers have many times studied hyenas for many, many months, only to find that they have got the sex of the hyena wrong completely. And I'm sure, as you know, Renee, the females have a pseudopenis. So it's the most unique, interesting reproductive system. It's very, very unusual in the mammal world, where the female has a fused tract, a fused urinary and vaginal tract. So she urinates and gives birth through the same entrance. And it is extended to form a pseudopenis. And in fact, she's even got false testicles and far higher levels of testosterone and androgen than a male hyena. So the trick is to actually look at the shape of the penis or the pseudopenis itself. Now, in an adult female, it's slightly easier, particularly an adult female that has given birth, because the process of giving birth, I don't want to startle this hyena, she's looking a little bit curious at us, so we don't want to startle her in any way. So the process of giving birth for a female hyena is a very tricky one, and one that changes the shape of her genitalia completely. So in a male's true penis, the end of it is slightly pinched, forming a slight bulb at the end, whereas in an adult female, it is almost sort of in a straight line. It doesn't have quite that pinched end. And if you are looking at a female that's reproduced, her nipples will be slightly enlarged. With the youngsters, you can still tell the difference in the same way with sort of sexually immature cubs, but it is slightly more difficult. And as I said, researchers have often found themselves making mistakes when it comes to trying to look closely at the genitalia of young scrambling cubs that dance all over the place. Luckily, of course, we have an advantage in that we have a camera and we've got all of our wonderful viewers taking screenshots of those brief moments of a spotted hyena, and often you can tell what sex it is. Of course, around a den site, a female with cubs clambering all over her or an animal with cubs clambering all over her is most likely to be a female. As soon as she starts suckling, then you know for sure. And a male in spotted hyena society will always be far more submissive. And it doesn't matter what the rank of the male. He will always be more submissive to every single female. The cubs have started emerging, but unfortunately it is getting a little bit dark for us. So we'll just watch this interaction play out. And then we shall continue on our search for the mystery. Than a male, adult male. But of course that doesn't help you when you're dealing with cubs of different ages. I don't think this is a female though. This to me looks like it might be a visiting male, just from that behavior. Very, very submissive. Oh, yes. Interesting. So yes, that was almost certainly a male by the way its sort of exploration of the cubs was greeted with almost discipline from the female. You could actually see it, well maybe you couldn't see, but as she dashed after it you could see this clear size difference between the two. I'm trying to listen to hear where they've gone. I can hear trees cracking off to the left of me. Now that was most likely not going to be a serious altercation. And probably that female would chase the male for a little bit. You could hear that excited chattering. That excited chattering was coming from both parties. Usually it's quite it's a sound that hyenas produce when they're quite agitated or excited, and they can often giggle in a submissive way and in a dominant way. So there's some very, very fine distinctions between the two. There's a hyena calling off towards where poor Gajima lost his kill, sort of a couple of 100 meters in that direction. And all is suddenly very, very quiet around the den site. The cubs went, or the more dominant of the cubs, the older cubs, also went dashing off in sight of, or to follow on with that altercation. Just drive a little bit down the road, see if we don't pick up on them. Either way, we kind of know how the situation plays out. Now, well, in the last year or so that I can think of off the top of my head, we've witnessed at least 3 serious or relatively serious inter-clan fights. And by that I mean between clan members, not between different clans. I mean members within a clan. And the one that I witnessed, and the one that Scott, I watched the clips of the others. One was with Scott and one was with James, I think. In all cases, the sub-adult cubs were in attendance. Not necessarily participating, but they're witnessing what was going on. And obviously learning to a certain degree. Everybody watch heads. From the interactions of the adults. And what springs to mind most dominantly in my memory of that was Bella. Now Bella is an interesting case because Bella, as far as we know, is a male sub-adult. He is basically an adult now, but he is the son of the matriarch, which gives him a slightly higher ranking than most other males. Because in hyena cubs, or in hyenas, the status is inherited from the mother. So whilst he would still be lower ranking than all females, he's sort of at that grey area within hyena clan dynamics. Now the way I'm interpreting things is from what studies have shown in terms of hyena behavior. That being said, I think you'll find, back to our Stevenson-Hamilton quote, I think you'll find that in 50 years' time we will know so much more about the behavior and the dynamics of a hyena clan. I don't for one second think we fully understand the dynamics of what's going on within their lives. We've got a vague idea, we know roughly the rankings, but beyond that, we don't fully know exactly how they operate from area to area and from clan to clan. That's one of the reasons why I find spotted hyenas so fascinating. Let's check and see. I think that male has been suitably chastened. Oh. How's it? Hello. Did you get into trouble by any chance? Oh, yes. fresh blood on his bottom. Shame, boy. Ouch. I'm not sure whether you could see that, but in typical hyena style, the female that went for that male grabbed him from the sort of the rear end, and that's usually the approach that they take. I don't really want to follow him too much further. He's had an interesting enough evening already without us pursuing him, and he has disappeared into the bushes. That's an area that's a little bit too dense for me to follow. Oh, hello. I should actually just sit here and wait for the rest of the hyenas to return. It's one of the cubs, sub-adults, not sure which one, running back towards the den. Oh. So that male clearly made a good escape, or a timely escape. Right, who else is going to come running down the road before we start off again? I'm sure that there are going to be more. So what we just witnessed now was relatively common, or as far as we know, that kind of interaction is relatively common. The males often find themselves in trouble with the females, but they still will risk that interaction just to sort of constantly remind them that they are part of the hyena clan itself. So Painted Wolf, you were wondering about how often that kind of interaction will occur. And within the clan dynamics itself, it's probably relatively frequently that the males will come and visit a den site, overstep the boundaries, and the females will immediately assert their dominance over them. In that case, by delivering a few well-placed bites to the more sensitive of areas. Now, a really serious hyena skirmish we've witnessed before, where they will go for both the rear end and the ears, and they hold onto the ears. And it can be very scary, very difficult to watch. Scary is maybe not the correct word. It can be very difficult to witness. As our hyenas play out the inscrutable dynamics that is a spotted hyena clan, let's head back over to Sam, who's got another glorious view for you.
So from some interesting dynamics with our hyenas, with Jamie, you are now back on Arathusa with Sam, and David, and Elvis the Ellie, and we're just watching that sun go down in the distance over there. It was just an incredible sunset, and we just came off to see if we can see it again, and now you can see those colors that are quite extraordinary. Some oranges, some gold. And we also just parked in front of some incredibly looking knobthorn trees over here. So we've got 3 dead knobthorn trees in a row. They just look really cool and right next to each other. You often find civets like to sleep inside these, well, not sleep, but they like to hide up there sometimes. They're tree dwelling. I've seen a few times civets sitting up in the trees. So we're driving now in a part of Arathusa that I haven't quite seen before. It's all very interesting. We just don't know where we're going. We're just turning lefts and rights. Doesn't seem to be much out on Arathusa this evening. Hello, Joyce in New Hampshire. You're asking me if I've ever seen an animal survive in the wild that is an albino. Have you seen one, Dave? Yeah, I can't say I've ever seen that before. Is this a road? I don't know if this is a road. Does it look like one? It looks like... Is that a road? No, that's not a road. No, that's not a road. I've never seen an albino animal out here. I've never heard of one either, to be honest, but I'm sure there are plenty of them. I'm sure there are plenty. I mean, like, what would a white lion be? what would you call that? Like a recessive gene. It's like a recessive gene. It's like melanistic. You can get, ooh, there's something in the tree there. So melanistic is black. I knew that. I knew that the melanistic, you can get melanistic leopards up in Kenya. So I've never seen one of those before. It would be an incredible choice to see an animal that is either white or black. You get like a melanistic cheetah, which is called the king cheetah, it's not a different species. A lot of people call the king cheetah a whole different species, but it's not. It's just a melanistic. So there's more of that in that gene, more of that black in that gene of that cheetah. I've never seen a king cheetah before. I'd love to though. It would be an exciting day to see a king cheetah. We're just looking to see if we can find a bush baby this evening, because I still haven't seen a bush baby since I've been here, and I'd love to see a bush baby. So we just got to look in the trees, and they have quite orange-looking eyes apparently. Super, super cute little animals to view. So going through Arathusa, I mean, it's been quite an interesting experience. It's so nice to just drive somewhere you've never driven before and kind of learn about the different soil types and the ecology and the different types of trees, you know. I chatted when I was at Cheetah Plains the other day. When I was at Cheetah Plains, you know, you don't know where you're going, but as soon as you have a memory of something there, because we bumped into Inkanieni, and we found her, and we looked at her by a termite mound, and now I know that area quite well. So then you start to develop memories with the land, and that helps you identify places that are quite good to go to. So Dave and I have just been traveling around Arathusa as best as we can to kind of figure out what the different territories might be here, where jackals would be, where we might find some leopards, possibility of cheetah, because there are quite a few open areas here, and the cheetah really like to be in those open areas. So it's all about getting to know the land. It's like getting to know anything in life, understand it a bit better. Marcel would love to see a bush baby, and Leopold wants to know what a bush baby is. Well, I can get a quick little pic. I'll get a picture for you just now, Leopold. Just while we go through this thicket, let's just. Ooh, we've only got 6 minutes left to drive, so we've got not much time. So I'll get the book out tomorrow when I'm on drive, Leopold, in the evening, and we'll go through how a bush baby works, and you know, in terms of its social structure and what family it's from. But while we've only got 6 minutes, let's do our best. Let's go up this road. We don't know what road this is, but it kind of feels like bush baby road. So I know it was quite a lame joke. Let's do it. So let's see if we can find a bush baby in 6 minutes. How cool would that be? Got to spot those amber-looking eyes. But there are all, a whole host of animals that will be out at night time, from the white-tailed mongoose to bats and the different owl species. We saw a greater spotted owl the other day. It was so beautiful to see that animal. And you just never know what you're going to find when you go out at night time. Okay, where are we now? It looks like we're on the main road. That's cool. We're now on our cut line. So Vuyatella's over there, and that's Arathusa. So it's good to know that we made it out alive. We managed to get through Arathusa. So looks like we're not going to find a bush baby for you guys this evening, but hopefully tomorrow evening we'll be able to find that for you. It's been a fantastic drive. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you, David, behind the camera. all the shots of the sunset. How incredible is that sunset? Thank you, Kirsty, behind the controls. Had a fun time, and hopefully I'll see you in the morning for another sunrise safari. We'll see what we can find. Hopefully some predators like leopards or cheetah or even the small things. For now, enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you soon.
Now, heading out into the darkness, I always find this particular time of year, and as we go further and further into winter, very, very exciting. And that, of course, is because the nocturnal creatures, the mysterious nocturnal creatures, I'm not actually really talking about the predators per se, but the more unusual animals, the servals, the caracals, the civets and the honey badgers, all sorts of things along those lines. In winter, they tend to come out far earlier. And of course, one of those things is to be one of those animals. And Tony, you were wondering if I learned anything about African bats. And one of the things that my research threw up, Tony, is we've always sort of bats have always been vilified, first of all, as carriers of rabies, which they can be, as well as being exceptionally disease-ridden animals, not so much on themselves, but in terms of the droppings that they tend to deposit in their regular roosting places. And I just read a recent article that seems to suggest that bats are not quite as unhygienic as previously thought. Particularly in this particular part of South Africa, there are not that many of them, or not nearly as many as thought, that are carriers of the rabies disease, as well as the fact that their droppings doesn't incubate any more than the normal amount of bacteria and other such nasty things as any other animal, although it does of course collect. And my friend Emma just sent me a message today to say that the farmhouse in which he lives, the ceiling finally gave in to probably about 50 years worth of bat deposits and probably collapsed all over her bed. So I think she'll be very happy to hear that bats are not quite as disease-ridden as previously thought. But yes, I'm still researching into bats, and I'm still finding the nocturnal adventures incredibly exciting. I'm looking forward to the next few months. One thing, this is not the most profound of statements at all, because I know this happens in winter, but the one thing that amazed me is just how early it got dark. Now, I find that I'm far more aware of the sunset, obviously, the sunset and the sunrise times when I'm in the bush than when I am in the city. So it makes sense that the 2 weeks have come as a surprise. It's had 2 weeks to get even earlier. Well, it is truly marvelous to be back once again in the Sabi Sands and to be back on the vehicle with all of you across the world. So thank you very much, as always, for joining us and for sending through your ever-present questions and comments that we always appreciate. Thank you, Viam. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always, as well as to our lovely ladies in final control. Now, I know that Kirsty was directing. I'm not sure who else was giving Kirsty a hand there. It was Lou. It was Louise. Thank you, Louise, as well, for helping Kirsty out in the afternoon sunset safari. Well, have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you for the sunrise safari. Cheers, everybody.